Welcome to The Courage Effect. I'm Suzanne Weller, and this is a show about growth and unleashing what's possible. You will hear inspiring stories about what courage looks like, how we navigate what's getting in our way, and the opportunities that surface when we choose courage over comfort. Let's get started. Welcome to The Courage Effect. You are in for such a treat today because my guest is somebody that is full of joy and just brings so much bravery, courage, and hope to the table. My guest is Pelumi Nubi. Pelumi is a trailblazing travel content creator and Lagos State Tourism Ambassador. She made history in 2024 to be the first Black woman to drive solo from London to Lagos. That is 10,000 kilometers across 17 different countries. She documents it all via a vlog, and she takes us along for the journey. She has visited over 80 nations, and she uses her platform to inspire boldness, challenge stereotypes, and spotlight hidden gems. One way that she's doing that is via her show now called 1 Week In. It's a multi-part series where she dives deep into the heart of each destination. It's amazing because she's bringing you into these communities that you wouldn't necessarily get access to. So you can see colorful moments, meet different characters, and have surprise discoveries in countries maybe you don't think you ever want to go to, or maybe you have a narrative around that the media has given you, or maybe it's something that's in your own country that you're not even aware of. It is joyous to watch what she does. She is really about giving you a front row seat to the rhythm and flavor of West Africa. Such a fantastic conversation. I know that you are going to love Pelumi. Enjoy. Pelumi, welcome to The Courage Effect. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you. So good to be here. I'm actually really excited.
Well, I have to say, all of my interactions with you have been obviously online, virtual, or watching you on YouTube or TikTok. And your energy is just, you have so much energy going on, and it's so lovely. I was watching your travel show the past couple of days, and it hyped me up, and I was just so ready to have this conversation.
Oh, that's such a great compliment. Thank you. Thank you so much. I love to meet people at the same energy. I don't know if you ever met someone offline in person and you're like, he's a different person, which I understand. Some people need to put on a show. But yeah, it's Pelumi is the same in, all situations. But thank you for your kind words. It really means a lot.
Oh, thank you. So I would love, as we start this conversation, because I feel like there's so much to talk about, because I love that your big headline news story is about you driving from London to Lagos. I'd like to talk about that, but I'd like to talk a little bit about you, because you bring so much personality to what you do, and I think it informs your work. So tell us a little bit more about you.
Where do we start from? How long do we have? Pelumi Nubi, that is my name. I was born in Lagos, Nigeria, spent my first 10 years of my life there, and then relocated to the UK, where I continued my education, further education and everything, and very recently then moved to Dubai. I'm a world traveler. I love exploring, trying new things, meeting new people. I feel like human connection makes life worth living. And I'm always in the hunt for the newest place, newest things. People describe me as being a daredevil, an adventurous person. I just like to do a couple of zip lining and jumping off buildings. It's just, I love the thrill. I like to feel alive. And I feel like in life, sometimes we get into the monotonous of things, like just everydayness or the mundaneness of it, which has a special place, don't get me wrong. But once in a while, I think it's good to intentionally just put a bit of a buzz into it. So yeah, that's always my thing. And I'm always yabbering on social media about traveling, exploring new places, especially as a female. I think, we live in a society that constantly disqualifies us from things. So I'm always like, what, if I can live my life, if I can be the representation and the example, maybe people can, see that and feel encouraged to go after their own audacious goals and dreams. So that's Pelumi in a nutshell. Just a girl living her best life.
Who has almost been to 100 countries, and that's pretty damn impressive.
Almost been to 100 countries. Celebrated my 90th country last week, which was Qatar, which is, absolutely amazing. on the hunt to get to 100 before the end of the year. I just feel like big audacious goals are very much achievable if you put your mind to it. And I'm always telling people to go after those things that get them excited about life. Absolutely.
Oh, I love it. Well, and I have so many questions to ask you about travel, and I love all of the posts that you do about like travel tips and like the mistakes that we tend to fall into and otherwise, and the idea that it really does take courage to travel alone, as you just said, not only alone but as a woman. With that theme, how do we get to you making the decision to do a road trip over 60 something days? How many?
Yeah, 74 days
Wow. Okay.
across 17 countries. It was intense. It was one of the bravest things I've done till date, you know. Definitely, it was a decision to do a solo drive from London to Lagos. And I remember telling this to, the first few people, and they're like, here we go again. My family members, at this point, they're kind of sick of me. And they're like, really? My mom wasn't impressed. She's just like, come on, Pelumi. But I think I've done so many travels that for her, she's seen enough proof that I've gone and returned. So it wasn't too heart wrenching or too scary. Didn't mean that they were not still very worried about me. But it was me trying to connect these two places I consider home. Like I said, I was born in Lagos, Nigeria, and then I grew up in the UK. And I was just constantly trying to travel. I found that I wasn't really, number one, exploring the African continent, which I was from. I've been to other places, but this place was still quite mysterious to me. And number two, just not seeing enough representation within the overland space. You tend to see people traveling as a group, with a crew, as a couple, but not a solo female black. There was just so many layers of what I was trying to break.
Yeah.
Stigma or just kind of belief system around what is possible. And honestly, when I tell people I was just doing it, it snowballed into something a lot more bigger. But genuinely at the heart of it was just someone that was quite curious. And I always tell people to lean into their curiosity because you just don't know where to lead you in the long run.
I love that. The idea of you also going alone and doing it. How long did it take you to plan? Because there is the idea of, there's the
Oh,
idea
yeah.
that might seem a little, brazen or crazy. How did you actually start to make it a reality and know that you could do that?
Oh, leaning into crazy. I know that's one of my famous quotes. I want to put on a t-shirt. Like, if nobody has called you crazy this year, you're playing life too safe. It's like one of my favorite quotes. I feel like you definitely, if you don't tell people your goals and they look at it like really, then maybe you're just, edging your bet a bit too close to home. The idea took about a year to actually go from point A to point B. Probably a little more than a year, but roughly about a year. And it took just the finances that had to go behind it. I didn't have like a sponsor per se, and this was a lot of countries and a lot of just funding. As much as I tried to cost my cost, like living in the car, like I customized the car and everything, I used the same car that I owned. I'm big on that, making use of the tool you already have. A lot of said, oh, you need a 4x4, you need to be a big customized. I'm like, if you give it to me, I'm gonna take it. But right now, I have a Peugeot 107 that I've had for 5 years. She's my city sprinter. I've used her to work. And that's what I'm going to use. And everyone's like, oh my God, the idea was already crazy. Now you're going way too crazy. And I think for me, it was always that message of making use of what you have, but also it connected to people because I wasn't seeing that this person that had all this money. I was just kind of like wanted to do something that didn't make any sense. It was like, oh, she comes from average home and she's able to make use of the things that she had. So a year of planning. And then, yeah, I think once you decide, it's just that moment you decide and it snowballs from there. You start telling more people. I made a post on social media and that went viral and I'm like, oh no, oh God, 5 million people have seen this video. Now I cannot change my mind.
Gotta do it.
Gotta do it. Public accountability 101. So yeah, it was a crazy journey. Absolutely.
I have so much respect for you going in your own car and you just saying, like not letting your circumstances get in the way of it, saying, I really want to do this. And that to me is one of the core themes of what you talk about in a lot of your work and a lot of your content is there are circumstances, but you have dreams, you have goals of what you want to do. So how do you truly prioritize that instead of making excuses for them to not happen?
Honestly, that saying where there's a will, there's a way is so true. Honestly, I feel like if people have the will to do something, you will find a way around it, no matter how hard it is. Some people, I even have a lot of privileges. As much as the journey was harder, I was traveling with, two passports that allowed the journey to be a bit more easy in terms of visa requirement. So I had to lean into my privilege too as well. What can make the journey also as smooth as possible, but also understanding that it has its own difficulty, and you just have to find that balance. But I think when it comes to big idea or courage, I think a lot of people have this thing of, you know, how how is it going to happen? And I don't think that's the first question you should be asking yourself. The first question is, imagine this happens, and your possible. It's almost like your spidey is just kind of like gets open to the possibilities. And I feel people don't allow themselves to even dream, for them to even take action in the first place. That's always, I feel, lacking. It's almost an automatic disqualification. It can never be me. I cannot do it. And that's always the barrier of entry, I feel. It's almost that disqualification from your own self, not even society or anyone else telling you that you cannot do these things. So I always try to overcome that. And I always question, is this fear mine? Was it given to me? Or, do I need to give it back to the person that it belongs to? So there's always, it's a lot of layering, and it's been years of daily practice to get to this point I'm at right now.
Well, and I'm thinking of your 28 Days of Brave content that you put together, which is so beautiful because it takes time. It's like a muscle that you have to build up.
Absolutely. Absolutely. With that series, a lot of people resonated with the fact that, even sometimes when you're brave, you don't realize that there's some principles you're practicing. You're practicing positive affirmation. You're practicing, putting yourself out there. You're practicing rejection, therapy, and, just getting yourself out and asking for things, even if the answer will be no. And that is where the courage comes from. I always tell people, like you said, it's that muscle. It's almost like going to the gym. It don't just bulk up in one day. It's months and years sometimes. So it's really putting in that daily practice over time that you do then to see those transformations, your mindsets, the way you look at things. And over time, you do see that change happen.
And I'm sure there were naysayers along the way. People, I mean, you talk to me about that. Talk to me about the people that were like, "Okay, you're crazy," and then maybe that emboldened you. Tell me about that.
Oh my God. Like I said, when I started the journey, I only started with about, I want to say 10K followers, maybe 12K followers.
Mm-hmm.
And very rapidly, I think within a month, I grew to almost 250K. So that's a lot of new eyeball on people that had no idea who I was and just saw me doing this crazy thing, in quotes. So there's a lot of, for my own community, and people that have seen me do all the trips and stuff, it's kind of, okay, this is advanced level, but we've kind of seen her do other things. But yeah, definitely people will have opinion. I call them keyboard warriors. They will have something to say. But you put them in your circumstance and they will freeze, And that's why I tell people about being called crazy is a compliment. It's literally someone not being able to fathom what you are doing. Like they can't even think about it. They cannot even process it. Their brain capacity is not even mature enough to be like, oh, this is a possibility. And you are out there doing that same thing. Like that is, you shouldn't even be you're on the same playing field. So I think when you reimagine your focus to that, and when people call you crazy or call you or say something or have an opinion, it's just like, are we even the same playing field? Should I even pay this person attention? Because our psyche is not even matching up, So I think that's where I've kind of come to. I'm just like, some of these people have never traveled before. They've never. So it's just like, yeah, why am I listening to you? But it takes a lot of mental practice. Don't get me wrong. It's easier said than done. You're human. It will get to you. Everybody love is one of our things, to be loved and to love. So we do get that. Oh, I wish. But you have to measure the cost of you not actually doing that thing because of what someone would say. Like, at the end of the day, it's only one life, and we have to be okay with living it the way we choose to live. So, yeah, those are the things. Those are the conversations I have with myself to get to where I am right now.
And I'm curious about, when watching your vlog, you documented every single day of this journey, and even now you're very present on social. So which is fantastic. But did it take a while for you to get used to that? For you to be documenting so much of your life?
It took a getting used to, and even doing the trip. I think I would say for maybe 2-3 days, I just couldn't look at the camera. The idea of it made me feel like I would physically vomit. Like it was just a lot. And sometimes I was very honest. I was just like, you guys are just going to see the road. You ain't going to see my face today because your girl is going through it. But I knew the importance of the journey, and it became bigger than me. It became getting messages from schools saying that, look, when we teach our curriculum and we are literally just watching your journey and using this to teach the kids. It became, 30 years old and 40 years old women like my age saying that, Pelumi, like I want to do the same thing doing. It became 70 years old. 70 years old woman sent me a message. It's like, I'm in my 70s. And for the very first time, I feel I can start living after seeing your journey. Like when you get messages like that, you have to show up because that experience is very little to do with you at that point. It's more of the impact and the change that people are going through and the transformation people are going through. So I think that was the driving force at one point. I'm just like, look, Pelumi, it's not about shooting yourself, it's about how quickly you can, clean yourself up. Like you just gotta keep going. So I feel that is what life is. Sometimes when your purpose and your calling gets bigger than what you're doing, it's bigger than self, it's bigger than self pleasure. And that's kind of the messaging, like a get message over message, like just follow your journey, the audacity, the bravery. It's almost like I am rewiring my thought process, and that's my life goal. So I just have to keep going.
It's so beautiful. And it makes me think of what you talked about when we first started, where you said human connection is so vital to you. It also allowed you to, it sounds like, really cultivate community and take people along with you.
Oh, community was everything. Absolutely. I felt that, I wasn't doing this journey by myself. As much as it was a solo trip, I had 200 and something people in that car. They were mindful of, am I eating? Am I okay? Am I sleeping good? Like the concern globally was just insane. And it just restored the kindness of humanity as well. I think that's always, sometimes taken away by, Western media or just media as a whole, about how they portray humans, and that just reinforced like the kindness of people. As we talk about, there's some crazy ones, there's some bad eggs, but generally the large population are kind and they are excited for you and they want to be part of your win in a very, even if it's the smallest way, they just want to be part of that journey with you. So that was incredible.
So amazing. So at the same time, it's probably stressful. It's also reassuring to know that there's that larger community there and that you're inspiring people at the same time. Love that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. We need to pause for a quick break. So stay tuned, everybody. We'll be right back. Just say no to fast fashion. Cheap clothing we only wear a few times and then toss aside has significant environmental impact. We need to shift to a more sustainable solution, and here's one step to take you in the right direction. Clothing rental from Armoire. Using Armoire these past few years has really changed how I think about clothes, my shopping habits, and empowered me to make more sustainable choices. I'm buying less, rarely visit the dry cleaner, and still look and feel great in what I'm wearing. Armoire makes clothing rental easy. I love building a rotating wardrobe with high-quality designer brands that are unique and sustainably sourced. They serve up amazing choices for me. All I have to do is make my selections, and they ship them straight to my door. If you're ready to curate your dream closet, you must try Armoire. And right now, my listeners can give Armoire a try and get up to 50% off their first month. That is up to $125 off. Just visit armoire.style. That's ARMOIRE.style/The Courage Effect to get up to 50% off your first month. Imagine a beautiful, stress-free, and environmentally conscious wardrobe. Try Armoire today. I also wanted to ask you about your TEDx talk, which I love, the whole idea of how to embrace imperfect action. And you have dyslexia, and that sounds like it was something that was a big impact on you as far as having to overcome something from
Yeah.
quite a young age.
Yeah, I didn't know I had dyslexia till I got to A levels. I was studying psychology, and my psychology teacher put me to the side of lots of essays, and she was like, "I think you're dyslexic," and I said, "I think I am not," because obviously just the just the labeling and just the stigma that came with it and everything. And a friend was like, just test for it. Like, what's the worst? Like, just at least you know. And shout out to that friend, Mariam. She's still a friend to date. And, I was able to piece the pieces together from primary school, getting yelled at a teacher and wanting to often miss Friday because that was the spelling test day. And I'll make any excuse because I just knew I couldn't. I was always red ink.
Mm.
And that really impacted kind of like my self-esteem and kind of like what my intelligence kind of like barrier was. But that was so crazy because then, once I got diagnosed and got the support, I went on to finish with a first class degree. I went on to study a PhD in cancer research and human genetics. And that really shows the power of identifying one weakness, not necessarily labeling it or carrying that label, but really understanding that, okay, this is how my brain think. I am a voice noter. I would not write an essay. I will talk to you, jump on a call with me. And that just was a theme of getting people that were naysayers. I remember when teachers were like, "You won't make progress. You won't do this. You need to do that," and being able to break every single thing and go beyond and to do the things that they say I couldn't do was just a testament. And it's almost like this thing now I hold on to, like, oh, people will say you cannot do it, but over and over and over, and this time and that time, and have specific reference points that I'd be like, but I did. I went on to do those same things. So I feel it's a blessing. I definitely, again, I have to put a caveat. It is a hard living with it,
Yeah.
emails this with triple checks and stuff like that. Shout out to ChatGPT now. But yeah, really, definitely was a journey to where I am right now. And again, that reminder of people that your lived reality currently is not what will to be forever. Like, it's always a journey. You'll get to know yourself more, you get better at the skill you're honing on, and it does get better. I think that's the message I want to put out there, that it does get better.
That's so important. I also so A levels. I'm being in the United States. My parents are British, but I
Oh,
do know that you're what 16.
A level 16, 17, yes, just before you go into what we call university, American call college. So it's just the 2 years between high school and college,
Okay.
American reference. Um, but yeah, it's A level is what you write before you go into university. So I study psychology, chemistry, biology. Those were my three A levels. And yeah, psychology was because very interested in humans, just the human behavior, we then translated to travel.
Yeah.
I'm always keen about culture and people and just what makes humans. It's always quite exciting to see we are more similar than differences. No matter where I go to, there's always that overlapping similarity of the humanity as a whole.
So transitioning over to your show, so one weekend, I'd love for you to talk about that. Like how did that come to fruition? And you seem to be having so much fun watching
Too
that
much fun.
show. Oh my god, so much fun! I'm like, okay, I want to go now. So how did that show come into fruition?
One weekend was idea birth after London to Lagos. I remember driving through African countries and especially Ivory Coast. And there's a particular place called Yamoussoukro, which has the largest Balisiko church. And I remember showing it, and people were like, "Is this in Africa?" And I'm like, "Hell yeah, it is in Africa." And that really was like, "Oh wow, it is true. What you see again on mainstream media isn't this? Is in the people, the culture, the architecture, the food, the vibe, the places."
Yeah.
And I remember I wanted to change that narrative. And there's that saying of, we keep saying the narrative is incorrect, but it's always because it's written by other people. So where exactly do we then add to that narrative for us, by us? And that was where One Week was born. It's basically a travel guide, a travel show that has a layering of things. So the two destinations we did was Sierra Leone and the Gambia, two West African destinations, which I actually drove by. So it was actually amazing to go back to those places. And it was really about just getting under the skin of these places. I was mostly taken around by a local person. So again, if you travel quite frequently, that's one of the best ways to travel because they show you the gems. And it was really showing the other side of the coin that you don't get to see about the African continent. And that's what I want to do more of. The goal actually is to be able to document all of the 454 African countries in this kind of format, whereby you want to go to Ghana, you want to go to Kenya, you want to go to South Africa. This is something you can watch and hopefully plan your trip around, getting inspiration around it. So it's been an amazing feedback. People in the diaspora, for example, or people internationally saying, wow, this country has automatically skyrocketed, like you said, to my bucket list. And even more pleasantly, locals saying, what? We didn't know we had a crocodile pond or paradise island. Like it's like, where is this? You mean this is in our own country? So we did the premiere in the local country, in the countries too as well. And hearing those, feedback was just so heartwarming. And yeah, hopefully boosting tourism in those destinations too as well. But yeah, it's honestly is possible to start something small and start building those little building blocks, and hopefully it becomes a legacy product over time.
I love it. I love the watching it. I love the whole idea of showing people the other side of the coin, as you said, because yeah, it's I'm amazed at how many people are like, oh, I'm not going to this country because, they see the news and there's certain
Oh
things
yeah.
that it's like, so forever
Or
it's
it's like
like,
on the red zone or something like that. It's like everywhere's the red zone.
yeah, and it's like, okay, maybe for a while, or maybe there's certain areas where it's unsafe, but don't just discount an entire country based on that. And I love the fact of you're saying that, people are discovering their own countries too. So like
Yeah.
the crocodiles, oh my God, like you touching that crocodile, I'm like, oof, go girl. I could not do that.
That was in Banjo. That was in the Gambia. They're friendly until they're hungry. So at your own risk.
But I also love that you show like the wrestling. I mean, like these
Oh
things
yeah,
that are such a big part of the culture that I've never seen. And
absolutely,
it's yeah,
absolutely.
it's so great. So we'll definitely make sure there's a link for everybody to watch that because there's so much goodness going on there.
So much. Thank you.
So what's next for you?
That's a good question. That's a really good question. I
Other
think
than
what
you're
I'm
finishing off your 100 countries.
yeah, finish over 100 countries. I really want to go to Antarctica as well to be my final continent too as
Mm.
well. So it's definitely something that is on high on the bucket list. There's some really, bucket destination like Japan and the rest, but I think Antarctica is like really, really up there. In terms of impact and goal and what I'm trying to build, is under the umbrella of something called Nubi Network, and it's almost like an ecosystem of, people that just go through a journey of change, of courage. I feel like life lived on the courageous side is a life well lived. It's almost this saying of if you believe you can or cannot, you are correct. It's almost deciding every day to take those courageous small steps over time, and you want to look back on life and be like, whew, damn, I used everything. I did everything. And I think that's where I'm trying to build. I think a lot of people have ideas and they just don't know how to get to that finished product. They have those London to Lagos ideas, do travel shows, books, but they just don't know how to make it a thing. They don't know how to get out their own way. And most time we say that we have fear or failure, but that's not the case. We're only scared of failing in front of other people. If nobody was watching us, we would take those brave, audacious steps. So, how do we really put those tools and resources and less about, inspiring, aspiring? That's great, but practical tools and implementation that people can take. So that's what I'm kind of trying to build. I think
Mm.
travel is that tool in which I used to tell the story, so it's less, dry or boring. It's almost like, okay, this is this
Yep.
is things you can do, and this is the joy of being courageous. This is an example of me being courageous, and I just want to keep doing more of that. I feel that's what the world needs more of, just more brave people as a whole.
I think you just gave me one of my favorite quotes. Life lived on the courageous side is a life well lived. I mean, that's the whole
Ooh,
reason why
without
I
the
do this
t-shirts.
show. So that is the courage effect right there. I love it. But I really love that it's through the travel lens and that that's what makes it more accessible because that was one of the things that when I was fortunate growing up, my parents, I was able to travel quite a bit as a child. So it was something that I just sort of intrinsically started to do on my
Absolutely.
own, but always with friends and otherwise. And when I was in college, I did my own trip to Europe, and I had a not so great experience happen to me in Brussels. And it was towards the end of my trip, and I was like, okay, this can't tarnish me traveling alone anymore,
No.
right? It's like this isn't going to happen. Like bad stuff's going to happen, and I have to make sure that this isn't, I mean, just as we said, the stories about these countries and these places, we can do that to ourselves. And it's like, just because some jerk was not nice to me, but I got away from it and it's okay. So how do we move on and how do we reclaim it for ourselves? And that's one of the things that I think is also the larger wake of the work that you do is that you're giving people the ability to get over those fears and to understand that like shit's going to happen and it's okay. Move beyond it.
And I think really was very crucial for me, when you talk about London, Lagos, or travel, or anything I'm doing, I try to show the behind the scene. When we talk about London, Lagos, as much as the experience was life changing, and if money I wouldn't put a price at. There's videos of me online of me bawling my eyes out because I've been delayed at the borders, or I was, touched inappropriately in some in a particular destination, or just feeling lonely because I was on the road for 74 days by myself. So I really don't try to sugarcoat the difficulty of being courageous. It is a hard decision. What I do try to then show is the other side of it, where it's like, despite the hardness, this is what you could potentially get out of it. But I never want to just be all glam and glitter, because people will hit that, deep or pothole and they're like, what the? There's a shock factor straight away there. It's not easy. There's always that someone has something to say, and mindsets you have to get over, and physical barriers sometimes you have to go through. And I think in those walking of that up and down is where the transformation within self come into place, because it's not just a smooth sailing road. You actually have to pause and think and look around and evaluate the situation, and then you can make a decision that you're okay living with. So I think it's very important for us to really highlight that to anyone listening, that your courageous actions would not come without someone pushing back or you facing challenges. It's almost a pass and parcel. It's almost guaranteed that it will be hard.
Yeah. And how do you just prepare yourself? Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that also makes me curious too, because some of the countries, you're going through some pretty conservative countries, religiously conservative and otherwise. How do you navigate those areas, or those spaces where you still want to be Pelumi, but you also want to honor their customs and their cultures, but not let it hold you back? How do you navigate that?
There's that saying, when in Rome, act like a Roman. There is the respect that I feel everybody should give to a particular destination. I'm always flabbergasted when people say, oh, this destination don't speak English, or there's no food I'm familiar with from home. And I'm like, you are in a new destination. Be open-minded. So definitely the willingness to be more open-minded. The research before even getting to that destination, like you said, you're going through some places that female roles are just not the Western ways. They are expected to look a certain way, expected to speak a certain way. There were some places I could raise my voice at the a man at the gates that won't let me through because I know, this is how it's done here. And there's some places I am yes-sirring all the way out of there, because I know that, this is what they expect from a woman. There's even shock. Like sometimes I remember a particular destination, they kept checking my car. They wouldn't believe I was back. They were like, where is he? Where is your husband? I'm like, what?
God.
What?
In the trunk.
In the trunk. It's a tiny car. You cannot miss a person in there. Like, they just couldn't. And you could tell they were trying to process this being a possibility. But because it wasn't their norm, it was like and we were back and forth, and I was like, I had to bring up my social media and show them, like, I've been traveling by myself. And they were like, why? What? Who is chasing you? What are you doing? Genuine concern, like, are you losing? Are you okay? Wow. And in that moment, you really have to be like, this is people's lived reality, and it might even be normal for you, but some spaces it isn't normal. And I know some people say it's 2025, this should be normal, but sometimes change takes time, and in these places, change is just taking a bit slower than what we would expect or whatever. But yeah, it's definitely a lot of research beforehand, a lot of really being open-minded and trying new things. I always tell people, don't ever shy away from trying new things. It will teach you so much that you won't learn from school or formal education. And that is the principles I go into those spaces. I am the stranger, I am the foreigner, and I'm here to learn. And instead of being bodacious, there time and place to own your ground, but you just have to figure it out. It takes practice, I guess.
Yeah, and it's one of those things. It's so rewarding. It's so much fun, but like when I've done it on my own, it's even more rewarding.
I tell you what, if it's, especially with solo travel, there's something about solo travel that changes one's perspective of how they see themselves. I would say if you've never solo traveled before, if you can, if you have the again, I would say it's as a privilege, do it
Yeah.
because it gives you self awareness, autonomy, self resilience, self reliance, and it's just so much of learning. You learn to be a boring person and you cannot even keep a conversation with yourself. You learn so much about you. It's wild. And you learn the world about the world. I feel when you travel with groups, there's time and place for it, obviously. You're always insulated, you're in that pack. But the moment you're by yourself, you have to strike a conversation with a stranger, you have to do this. And it really gets you out of that shell. And what I love is that it doesn't just end with the solo travel. You're able to extrapolate and put those lessons into your everyday life. If you're able to
Yeah.
go to Paris and navigate their complex, is it complex? Not too crazy. Train system. You go home and you see a spreadsheet and you're like, I can do this. Like, I can do this. So that is the joy. I would say travel is a gift that keeps giving. It just keeps giving. It's the best investment I've ever made. It's hell of expensive as a hobby. I tell people
Hmm.
there are cheaper hobbies to get into. But it honestly is so rewarding. And I always say, if you have the chance, you have the privilege, take it. You won't regret it. Absolutely not.
I so agree. And it's the other thing you're making me think of too is language is such a barrier. I mean, a lot of the time, and I've experienced this too. I've gone to countries where I'm like, oh God, I'm not comfortable in speaking this language, but I also don't want to be the jerk. Like, I don't they speak English everywhere in the world to your point, because that to me is, I want to try, at least try.
Yes. Yes.
And
I always
that,
tell people, learn hello, learn please. 1, 2, 3 words in the most broken is one of the best icebreaker. Them seeing you try and they having a little giggle, and then you'll be surprised. Sometimes they do switch and they do know how to speak English, but they will want you to give that attempt, or they don't, and it gets to a whole gesture. I've done a whole conversation, me sign languaging and pointing and laughing, and we're literally in heaps of laughter at the end of the conversation, whatever was communicated. But it's all part of the memories, all part of those things. Like, oh my God, I remember when this guy, there's just so much joy in, trying to figure out the things that seems impossible, and
yeah.
you just having that satisfaction of, oh wow, I actually cracked the code, or at least I tried to crack. And I think that's the whole point of, this conversation, of that is the attempt, is the trying, is the not disqualifying yourself, is the bravery or the courage to just try, which a lot of people, sometimes struggle with.
You said a really important word, which is joy, because we think about
Oh,
courage and doing these things, and it's like we always think it's hard. And it's like, yes, a lot of the time it's hard, but there's so much joy in the journey as well.
so much joy. You see my pictures, like they are naturally three. My whole teeth is out. There's just so much joy in it. Is the meeting of the strangers, the trying of the incredible delicacies, hearing new music, learning, and really seeing that life most times are made out of the simplest things. And I think sometimes we get carried away in the rat race of the bigger, the fancier, and you go to some destination and they have barely anything, and you can see they're so filled with joy, and you're like, what am I chasing? Like, what is driving me? And these are always the reminder of joy is a choice. Joy is something that you actively, want to participate in. And
Mm-hmm.
that is where I always want to be reminded. And travel does that for me. And with some place, I'm just like, they don't have anything, but they have so much joy. And I have much more. And some days I'm like, So it's always the reminder to just put that gratitude and put that filter of joy, um, in one's perspective.
So good. So good.
Thank you.
As we wrap up the conversation, I want to repeat back a few things that I'm taking away from this.
Okay.
Courage starts with imagination. What are the things that are possible? That's one thing that really resonated for me. And the idea of the larger impact of our actions. The people that have reached out to you and said, you've given me courage, you've given me the opportunity to see that more is out there. And the idea that it does get better. It might be hard, but keep going, keep pushing through because there's something else on the other side. And of course, my favorite quote, life lived on the courageous side is a life well lived. So beautiful, Pelumi. Thank you for such a fun conversation. Thank you for your work. Now I'm going to be planning my next trip. I'm going to be going home and talking to my husband. Like, maybe I'll go on my own. We shall see. But I'd love any final thoughts you want to leave our audience with.
I always say this is my life motto. The magic is in the doing. I believe we could live in the edge of the umming and ahhing and not thinking and wondering and speculating and trying. But when you make up your mind that I'm going to take action, and it might be messy and it might not make sense and it might be scary, in fact, sometimes petrifying, but you take that brave, courageous step forward, it really does line up in the long run. So anyone listening, any idea you've been putting off, anything you've been saying you're going to do, try, send that emails, fill that application in, just take action because the result is waiting for you on the other side. And I'm so proud of you, whoever's listening to this. And thanks for your time. Time is so valuable and you've given us so much of it today. So thank you for that as well.
Oh, so grateful. I'm so grateful that this experience also just brought you into my life and I've gotten to know you through it. So thank you. And I'm so excited to hear about Antarctica when you actually get there. So I'll be following along. All right, Pelumi, thank you for all of your joy and everything that you do.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Take care. Stay courageous. The Courage Effect is brought to you by Weller Collaboration. If you're looking for a leadership coach, maybe a speaker or a consultant to help you or your team be more courageous and adaptable, we would love to have a conversation. More information is available via the links in our show notes. Please spread the word about the Courage Effect. You taking a few minutes to rate or review your favorite episodes or share them with people in your universe makes a big difference. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. For more information about the show, me, our amazing guests, or you'd like to apply to be a guest on the show, please contact us via our website at thecourageeffect.com. It takes a village to bring this show to you. I want to thank Alex Sandyforth for her production and administrative superpowers, Dave Nelson for composing our theme music, and I am your host, Suzanne Weller.